Everywhere you turn, there's a new rule about what kids should or shouldn't be eating. Seed oils are bad. Sugar is toxic. Only organic food is safe. Protein is everything. And if you're a parent trying to raise a healthy child, it can feel like the rules keep changing and getting stricter. I'm Jill Castle, a pediatric dietitian, mom of four, and host of this podcast, The Nourished Child. And if you've ever wondered, am I doing this right? Or what actually matters when it comes to feeding my child? You are in the right place because today I'm going to simplify all of this for you. We're going to break down the biggest nutrition trends affecting kids right now, what's actually helpful, what's potentially harmful, and what you can confidently ignore. And by the end of this episode, you'll feel more grounded, more confident, and clearer about how to feed your child in a way that supports both their health and their relationship with food. So stay with me. This is going to take a lot of pressure off. So kids today aren't just learning about food from us anymore. They're absorbing messages from social media, sports culture, peers, school environments, and even well-meaning health campaigns. And many of these messages are rooted in fear, not function. And when fear drives food decisions, it doesn't just affect kids and what they eat. It affects how they feel about food, their bodies, and themselves. That's why this conversation matters. Let's start with what is helpful, because many of these trends do have a kernel of truth. Things like building balanced meals, including protein, carbohydrates, and fats, focusing on fiber and whole foods, paying attention to energy needs, especially for active kids, having regular meals and snacks. These are all good things. You hear me talking about this stuff on this podcast, on my YouTube channel, on my blog articles, all the resources I create. I'm constantly talking about food balance, variety, structure. These things really are what kids need to grow up healthy and happy. But here's the thing. The goal here isn't perfection. It's really capitalizing on patterns that move the needle. So here's where things can get off track, however. When guidance or rules turn rigid or inflexible, that's where things can really get off track. When food becomes good or bad, clean or junk, healthy or toxic. When we get into this language, something strikes a chord in us where we feel like we have to control food. We have to make sure it's always nourishing. It's always healthy. It's always well balanced and perfect. But this can lead us to restricting things, creating too many rigid food rules. And when nutrition becomes about avoiding instead of nourishing, our children can feel that shift. So let's start with some common messages out there that you may feel are confusing and maybe changing the way you feed your kids or changing the choices that you're making with your kids. So let's just get some background reality checks on some of these misconceptions or messages that are out there about food. So let's start with seed oils. Now, I've done an episode on seed oils last year. I'll link it in the show notes below. But this is one of the most talked about topics right now. And you may be wondering how seed oils affect your children, whether seed oils are healthy for your children. The good news is I have two other episodes coming out that will be involving seed oils. One is an episode with a scientific researcher on the topic of seed oils in infant formula. Another episode that will be coming out soon is an interview with a researcher who specializes in polyunsaturated fatty acids, specifically omega fatty acids. And she's going to talk about the essential quality of these special fats that children need. So I'm going to touch on this very lightly, but I want to sort of forecast some future episodes where you can go and listen into those and even get more information about plant-based oils, seed oils, omega-6 fatty acids. But Here's the thing. If you're on the media, if you're on social media, listening to the news, you may have heard that seed oils cause inflammation and should be avoided entirely. But here's some facts about seed oils and hopefully a more balanced perspective for you. One, most Americans think of sunflower and sesame oil when they hear the term seed oil. Half of the American population thinks seed oils are healthy. The other half don't know about them or don't have an opinion. Scientific data, however, consistently demonstrates that industrial seed oils like canola, soybean, corn, sunflower do not cause chronic inflammation and are healthier alternatives to saturated fats. Saturated fats like butter, lard, the visible animal fat we see on a steak, for example. These seed oils lower LDL cholesterol, reduce cardiovascular disease risk, and provide essential fatty acids, really debunking these claims that they are quote unquote toxic. Omega-6 is really what we're talking about in these seed oils, and what the research has found is that they do not cause inflammation. In fact, they are anti-inflammatory. Where some of the confusion comes in is that omega-3 fatty acids, the heart-healthy fatty acids that you'll find in fatty fish, for example. These are the fats that include DHA and EPA. Omega-3 fats are more anti-inflammatory than the omega-6 fats. But some people have interpreted this information in the wrong way, interpreting that omega-6 fatty acids are pro-inflammatory, simply because they're not as anti-inflammatory as the omega-3 fats. This is simply not supported by research. The other thing that research tells us is that when you replace saturated fats like butter with seed oils or plant-based oils, it actually lowers LDL cholesterol. That's the bad cholesterol that floats around in your veins and starts to get sticky and sticks to your vessels and produces clogging the arteries. When we take seed oils and consume them instead of butter, we actually are effectively decreasing the risk for cardiovascular disease. And that's because seed oils have lipid-lowering properties. Again, this is all demonstrated in the scientific research. Furthermore, studies suggest that the folks who consume the most plant-based oils actually had a 16% lower mortality risk, that means a lower risk of dying, compared with those who had a lower intake of plant-based oils. Other sort of worries or misconceptions out there are that seed oils have contaminants in them that are produced from processing. Things like hexane, which is a solvent residue. Federal reports say the residual amounts are toxicologically insignificant and more often than not evaporate during cooking. So seed oils contain polyunsaturated fatty acids. These provide essential fatty acids. So I want you to cue in on the word essential, because essential means we cannot produce these fatty acids on our own within our bodies. We need to get these essential fatty acids from an external source. Seed oils like corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, these provide 2 essential fatty acids. Often, seed oils are targeted as the problem, but what is more likely happening is that seed oils travel in a vehicle like highly processed, nutrient-poor foods, and that association has made seed oils the target. Well, it's not the seed oils in and of itself as a standalone food. It is the food in which they are included in. For example, fast food French fries. So we know that seed oils often show up in processed foods. And yes, we don't want processed foods crowding out our more nourishing options for our kids. But that doesn't mean seed oils themselves are something to be afraid of. What matters most, and I say this over and over again, is the overall pattern of eating. So if your child is eating foods that contain seed oils, that's not really something you need to panic about. What you need to focus on is making sure the context, the foods that are consumed with the seed oils, are nourishing foods that provide a lot of nutrients. Okay, let's talk about the Dirty Dozen list. This is a list that's produced each year by the Environmental Working Group. And this list can certainly make parents feel like certain fruits and vegetables are unsafe unless they're organic. What is so interesting is this group's been around for a long time. They produce the same list every year. And I remember writing about this back in 2011 when I was writing Fearless Feeding. We talked about the Dirty Dozen list. They're still around and they're still causing fear. But here's the reality, and this is what I want you to really hear about this. And it is that the bigger risk is when kids consume less than the recommended fruits and vegetables that are required each day because their parents feel unsure about what's safe. So fruits and vegetables, whether they're organic or conventional, support health. You should be targeting 5 servings a day of combined fruits and vegetables. So what makes that really easy? Include a fruit or a vegetable at every single meal and every single snack. Wash them thoroughly, serve them, and let your child eat them. The best fruit or vegetable is the one your child will actually eat. That's when they get the nutritional benefits. Let's talk about sugar, because it's another area where fear has taken over. Yes, of course, too much added sugar is not ideal, and our guidelines suggest that less than 10% of the total caloric intake in the context of a varied, balanced diet is reasonable and okay and health beneficial. So what does that look like? For a child, that could be about 150 to 200 calories per day from added sugar. But labeling sugar as toxic or something we have to completely avoid can certainly backfire. Because here's the thing, kids need to know and learn how to manage sweets, not fear them. When we overly restrict sugar, it often becomes more appealing to children, not less. And that's where we get into those situations where our kids are sneaking foods, hiding them, overeating them when they're at their friends' houses or at birthday parties because they don't have adequate access or regular, predictable access to them day in and day out. So that's definitely something we can all work on. The fourth nutrition trend that you don't really have to worry about is this obsession with protein. I don't know, I'm a target in the social media world because I'm over 55 in menopause and I seem to be getting protein ads and protein content left and right. And it is saturating and it's hard not to think about it. And I imagine you're probably seeing some of the same content. Protein is everywhere right now. And while it is important, it's also important for you to know that the studies tell us that most kids are already getting enough without even trying. So when we focus on protein, we can unintentionally focus too heavily on those foods and lose the other foods in our children's diet that are just as important: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, dairy. And we can start tying food to body goals like muscles in ways that aren't helpful for growing kids. Protein is just part of the dietary picture. It's not the whole picture. I like to say it's just one ingredient. It's not the whole enchilada. So just make sure you offer a source of protein at main meals and snacks. Things like beef, poultry, fish, eggs, beans, seeds, nuts, nut butters, milk, and dairy foods. If you do have questions about how much protein you should be giving your child, make sure to check out my protein guide. It will give you the protein guidance for all ages. It gives you the food sources, the amounts kids need based on their age. You can go to theNourished.com To find that, it's called the Protein Guide, or you can check the link in the description below. The fifth trend is this whole idea of clean eating. This was really popular about 10 years ago, and now it seems to be coming back, particularly when we contextualize it around ingredients and the fear that a lot of people have around the ingredients in food. This can be especially tricky with children because clean eating sounds like it's a positive term, but it often comes with rigid rules. It also implies that if food is not clean, it must be dirty. Clean eating often involves rules like no processed foods, no artificial ingredients, no food dyes, only whole foods, organic foods. And for kids, when they hear this messaging around foods, it can create anxiety, inflexibility, or rigidity, and moral thinking about food. When kids start labeling foods as clean or unclean, good or bad, healthy or unhealthy, it can shape how they see not only the food, but how they see themselves. When we step back and we kind of look at all of these messages that are around nutrition trends and food, the real concern isn't one food or one ingredient. It's the pattern. It's the pattern of fear-based messaging, rigid food rules, moral or morality around eating and food, a hyper focus on ingredients, and early body awareness that gets tied to food. That's the problem here with these messages. These patterns, when we start to hone in on a hyper focus on ingredients or food rules or moralizing food, these messages don't just affect your child's physical health, they affect their emotional well-being too. And as you know, I think both of these things matter and matter quite a bit. Here's the good news. You do not have to follow every nutrition trend. You can confidently ignore extreme claims, one-size-fits-all advice, elimination-based messaging, social media hacks. If it sounds rigid, extreme, or fear-based, it's probably not necessary for your child. Nourishing children isn't a sexy job with a special diet. It is the day in, day out routines and rhythms, structure and boundaries that really make raising and nourishing a child successful. Instead, focus on what truly supports your child. Consistent meals and snacks, variety over perfection, neutrality in the language that you use around food, a positive family culture, supporting your child's growth, their confidence, their development. Your job is not to eliminate every risk. It's to create a steady, nourishing environment where your child can grow physically and emotionally. And if you're listening to this and thinking, I want help applying this in my own home, I've got you. I got stuff for you. You can look further at. You can check out my Nourished Child Blueprint online course. It's a step-by-step class that walks you through exactly how to raise a healthy eater using food, feeding, and child development. You can also look at my parent group program where we work together in real time to apply the whole child healthy model and the 8 pillars of wellness in your day-to-day life so you raise a child who is healthy and happy. Or if you're a one-on-one person and you want to work with me directly, you can get my personalized support for you and your child. All of these options are available over at my website, thenourishedchild.com. And listen, I'm going to ask this because I ask it all the time. If this episode helped you feel more confident and less overwhelmed, I'd love for you to follow the show, leave a rating, or write a quick review. It helps more parents find this message, and that's a win for you and other parents like you. That's it for today. I hope this episode helped you feel a little calmer, feel a little more confident, have some guidance around what you can filter in and filter out in your own parenting around food. And as always, give that child in your life a loving squeeze today. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child, inside and out.